You can be successful, respected, and still feel completely disconnected from yourself. You can be doing all the right things and quietly wondering, why doesn't this feel like my life anymore? At some point, especially in midlife, we have to stop running, stop performing, and sit with ourselves long enough to ask the questions we've been avoiding. Today's conversation is about slowing the brain down, interrupting the negative stories we repeat without even realizing it, and learning how to change the emotional direction of a hard day quickly and intentionally. If you've ever felt accomplished yet empty, grounded yet unsure, and who hasn't, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Say Yes Experience. I'm your host, Jessica Rector. If you've been here before, welcome back, friend. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, welcome. I am thrilled you're here. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. You've checked all the boxes. You've achieved the goals, and yet something feels off. Today's episode is for those who feel emotionally bankrupt on the inside, the ones who are asking, who am I now? And what is it I actually want? I'm joined by Siobhan Swain, licensed clinical social worker and owner of the Healing Lounge, where she helps high achievers navigate grief, trauma, and the quiet disconnection from self that so often shows up in midlife. In this conversation, we're slowing things down, way down. We talk about sitting with yourself, building a solid internal foundation, and asking the right questions to interrupt the negative stories running your life. And friend, you have a lot of negative stories running your life. You'll learn how to calm a racing mind, shift your inner negative, and turn a bad day around fast. This episode is about choosing who you want to become. Let's go. Please help me welcome my guest today, Siobhan Swain. Thank you so much for being here, Siobhan.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica.
Of course. So, as we're going through midlife, I know myself, sometimes it's kind of a rocky road, unpredictable at best some days. But whenever I chat with other people in midlife, what I'm finding is that a lot of times they don't know who they are, what they want, or where they're going. And so, how have you found that this is showing up, and what do you recommend for people who are actually in that position?
This often shows up as hesitancy. It kind of
Mm.
shows up in a subtle way with people feeling hesitant to make a decision, hesitant to make a change. It can show up as guilt, feeling that at this age I should know who I
Yep.
am, feeling as if I've had so many years, how could I end up in this place? It also it can show up with a lack of fulfillment and a person kind of realizing that they're living a life that doesn't actually give them the sense of joy or
Mm.
fulfillment that they expected.
Well, one of the things that I also find is that if you ask people a lot of times, what does joy look like or what brings you joy? They don't know because it's been so long of them taking care of other people, doing for others, whether it's working, taking care of the kids in the house, that they don't know what joy looks like. And so, how can, if they're in that position that I'm not sure what that is, I'm not sure, like logically, they know what the word means, right? If I were to ask them, what do you do that brings you joy or what lights you up and brings you joy? You see this blank stare that goes over their face because it's been so long since they've thought about that.
People often logically know what the word is, but joy
Yeah.
is still quite vague. So sometimes the question being posed in that open-ended way can feel overwhelming if I don't
Yeah.
have a solid connection to myself, to where I regularly engage in conversation with myself. Okay, what do I want to do this week? What would I like to do this weekend? And so sometimes more specific questions can be helpful. So asking, when was the last time you did something where you lost track of time? Most of
Ooh.
us can remember that, right? We can say, oh, you know what? I did this paint class with friends, right? When was the last time that something really made you laugh? Like that gut wrenching laugh to where you're trying to like catch your breath, you're trying to like calm yourself down. We can normally remember one of those moments. When was the last time something caught your attention and you were curious about it, right? You kind of thought that sounds interesting. I would like to know more about that. Those questions give
Mm.
people a little bit more structure and it feels less overwhelming because then that guilt doesn't necessarily have time to kind of enter in of like, why can't I answer this question? And they get more of a quick response and we can pull upon recent memories for that.
I love those questions. One of the things that I really love about those questions is curiosity. I think it's such an underutilized skill. If you think of kids, kids are extremely curious. They ask
Yes.
lots of questions, starting with why. And then
Mhm.
it seems as we age, we stop practicing that curiosity muscle. We just take things for as they are or what people say, and then we buy into them as, oh, that's got to be true because so and so said that that's true. And we stop trying to figure things out for ourselves, or even if we see something that's interesting, just like what you said, oh, that's what's interesting about that. But even to take it a step further, that's interesting. Let me go fill in the blank. Let me go find
Exactly.
out about that
Hmm.
painting class, or let me go see how to unpack that. And we just stop. So, why do you think that is?
In graduate school, they would say, be curious. And I always thought it was such a cliche things, right? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, these professors, these people in academia. But then the longer I've been in my career, the more I come back to sometimes that's really the launching pad. And sometimes we don't want to ask a question because we're afraid of what the answer may be. Because once we start being curious, now we have to deal with the answer. If I start to ask myself questions about myself or about different aspects of my life, and then I answer, now I may have to do something. Now I may have to make a change. Now I may have to reimagine how I thought things would be. And change is scary for people because change
Mhm.
equates grief. It leads to some type of loss, some type of shift, and that brings up a lot of emotions. And what I know to be true about humans is if we can just stick with the happy emotions at
Mm.
all costs, we will. So sometimes we pause because we have an idea of what could come.
We can no longer lie to ourselves or
Exactly.
deny it or
Yes.
push it down, pretend like
Hmm.
it's not there. If we ask ourselves the question and if we're honest with ourselves with the answer, we can no longer pretend it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And now we need to do something.
What's worse is if we decide not to do something, we're sitting in that, which then just
Absolutely.
keeps us stuck, stagnant, more miserable than not knowing. And so
Mhm.
it's almost like once we start revealing that, and then we have to unpack it and ask, okay, well, where did that come from? Why is it there? How do I not repeat that same pattern? Oftentimes we don't want to spend the time and the energy to go to deep dive into that. We just want to keep living kind of with our these blinders on. Want your event to do more than just motivate? Want it to transform? Hi, I'm Jessica Rector, CEO of the Say Yes Experience, #1 best-selling author and the keynote speaker and experience creator companies call when they're serious about change. I don't just speak, I'm known to move people. From the main stage to custom Say Yes Experience team building events, your group will crush comfort zones, ignite connection, and fuel mental wellness and peak potential, all while having the kind of fun that actually sticks. Whether it's a leadership summit, company offsite, or all hands meeting, we bring immersive, energizing experiences that unlock what's next for your people and business. So if you're ready to ditch burnout and lead your team into bold action and a Say Yes culture, book me now at jessicarector.com or email me at jessica@jessicarector.com. And hey, subscribe to the Say Yes Experience podcast right here. It's where the movement starts.
You've heard of a bucket list, things you want to do before you die, right? At the Say Yes Experience, we believe in something truly more powerful, the Say Yes bucket list, the things you want to do to truly start living. It's about feeling alive, breaking out of routine, and turning someday into right now. We've created a free Say Yes bucket list template to help you get started, so you can move to ideas to action and start saying yes to light the things that light your fire. So don't wait to truly start living, and download your free template today.
To do the deep work of asking questions, of challenging ourselves, of critiquing our thoughts. I'm thinking this, where did this thought come from? It's a lot of work. And something that a lot of people struggle with is treating themselves like they're a priority. Taking the time to say yes to yourself means that you're going to have to say no to something else. Sometimes that pattern of avoidance is, I haven't really given myself permission to make myself a priority, or to say I actually need to take some time away from these responsibilities to figure out a few things about myself.
So how do they start doing that? If they've never made themselves a priority, they don't know what that looks like. How do they start doing that? Because it's not, they may know it in their minds. Yes, I need to start doing that. But knowing it in our minds, we as humans know a lot of things in our mind, but it doesn't mean that we're actually doing them. So how do we shift it from knowing it in our minds to actually doing something with it?
I'm always a fan of starting small. The easiest thing we can do is ask ourselves, what's the smallest thing I can do for myself this week? It could be actually take the break when I say I'm going to take the break. It could be ask myself a question I've been avoiding. It could be like, let me take out a sheet of paper and just really see, what do I want in this moment, and pay attention to the answers. A lot of times we want to go from zero to 100, and then we set ourselves up for failure. So we have to give ourselves permission to go slow, to be a beginner, and to know that this will not be resolved immediately. We don't immediately come to this place. We normally come there after years, and it's going to take a little bit of time to start to shift our mindset.
And I think that's the biggest key is grace and space to get there, because we just want to go full speed. And it's almost like we want to have the answers and we wanted it 2 seconds after we started the process.
Yes. And then we're disappointed when it doesn't work. Allow yourself to be a beginner. If I'm new to developing a relationship with myself, then I'm going to have to treat myself in that way, ask questions. We don't meet people and immediately say, hey, do you want to go to Italy? I mean, maybe someone does, but normally we want to know, what's your name? What are you interested in? And developing a relationship with yourself means starting from the basics. What did I enjoy this week?
Siobhan, I think that's so powerful, because I think we come to a place in life, and a lot of times, depending upon who we're around, we like something, we believe something, we value something because someone we know believed that, like that, or valued that. And we don't necessarily know if we do, especially if we haven't done that work. We're still carrying around beliefs and values from our parents, not even recognizing that we don't believe that or we don't value that. That's not in alignment with our morals. But that's how we grew up, and we take those on from our parents. And then when we become adults, we don't even think about it. We just keep showing up that same way, keep liking the same things. And then maybe we got married, and maybe our spouse decided they like something else or believe something else. So then we take that on. But if we were to really ask ourselves, what do I believe? What do I value? What do I like? We might be surprised at the answers, not just asking ourselves those questions, but then following it up with, why do I believe that? Why do I value that? Why do I like that? Oftentimes you may find that it's because your parents did, or your spouse did, or you hang around friends that do, but do you really believe, like, and value those same things?
Getting in the habit of asking ourselves more questions about how we got to this thought can be super helpful, because like you say, it's so easy to copy and paste. It becomes routine. It becomes habit. We do this. Well, why do we do it? Because this is what we always do every December. Okay, well, why do we do this? Do I enjoy doing this? And even going a step further to, what parts of this do I enjoy and what parts of this do I not enjoy? Because sometimes it's not an all or nothing. Sometimes I like the first half of the day, and then the second half of the day isn't my thing. And then I have even more information about myself.
Oh, I like that. That's powerful. Like, what parts do I really like? And what that reminds me of when you say that is, what parts give me energy and fill me up and what parts drain me and bring me down. And we want to do more of the stuff we like and gives us energy and less of the other things.
I'm always a fan of breaking things down as much as possible because there's so much information. And I think people are often surprised once they start to ask themselves questions. They start to kind of remember that, you know what, a lot of the things have been me. Sometimes we don't realize it. Sometimes it's not the totality of the thing, but we can start to see the places where we did kind of like say, actually, I would prefer to do this today. And then that kind of helps build up the momentum and the belief that we can make other changes.
I love that. And so one of the things that you practice with your clients, which I absolutely love, is who said that? So tell us more about that.
That is my favorite question. Oftentimes, we talk about things as if they're a fact. If I log in and Jessica says, I like your earrings, and I may think, well, you know what? Jessica didn't say that last time I talked to her. Last time she probably didn't like my earrings. She's probably been judging me and my earrings this entire time because it happened so quick. But if I ask myself who said that, actually, the only thing you said was that you liked my earrings. Everything after that was a story that I created based on my own past experiences, my own past hurts. And so it kind of helps us deal in the reality of the situation and get out of immediately believing everything that we think.
The Say Yes experience is the movement that helps you adapt to change, enhance mental wellness, and stretch into what's possible. We tailor every experience to your specific challenges and goals, whether that's preventing burnout, building resilience, or creating a culture of bold action and connection. Whether it's a getaway with your friends or creating something for small teams to an entire organization, this is where transformation begins. Say yes to growth. Say yes to a custom experience designed just for you. Let's build and develop your own Say Yes experience at jessicarector.com. This episode is sponsored by... Wish you could hit pause, catch a breath, and leave the rat race behind for a while? You can. Come check out Breakspace, a global community where mid-career professionals just like you are creating life-changing breaks every day. Founded by two leading break experts, this one-of-a-kind resource is your go-to for all things career break. With hands-on coaching, dynamic courses, and genuine connection, you don't have to go at it alone. Visit gobreakspace.com to learn more and join today. We believe everything we think. And we don't just believe it, we believe as though it's fact.
Versus what actually happened more often than we give ourselves credit for.
Oh, that's so true. And we convince ourselves that someone's saying something about something that has to do with us. And why didn't they say hi to me? Do they not like me? Or if I do that, they're going to think that. And then we create that false narrative as though it's true. We don't just behave on it once. We keep acting and behaving on that story because we keep replaying that story over and over in our head. And the more we play that story, the more we buy into it as though it's true.
And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because now I'm behaving as if you have an issue with me and you didn't have an issue with me. But if I keep treating you like you did, guess what? You may never want to compliment my earrings again because it led to all of these things. And so it creates these false positives because then it's like, well, see, I knew something was up. But the reality is, had I been able to engage with myself critically, I could have stopped it before it led to any type of interruption in a relationship.
So how can we do that?
That question is honestly key. Most of us know whether or not we're an overthinker or not. Most of us know if we replay scenarios, if we make up stories. And so one, asking ourselves, when I have an interaction, how easy is it for me to move on with my day? Do I need to keep running through things? Do I often feel as if those thoughts keep coming back up? Do I find myself going too far into the future or worst case scenario? And then really developing a pattern of, okay, why am I thinking that? What did they say? What did I hear? What am I taking that to mean? And once we start to do that, we can develop a habit of pausing and kind of catching ourselves and then giving ourselves an opportunity to not go down that rabbit hole.
I love that. And it reminded me a couple years ago, my son developed something called the 5 minute method. And I won't go through what all the minutes are, but basically, I had this interaction with someone. We're in Australia, and I had driven 4 hours one way to go see these lava caves. And I knew my son was going to love him. It was so great. Well, we get there and they say, you have to have a reservation and we're sold out for the rest of the day. So I literally drove 4 hours. We were just going to do it. And I drove 4 hours back. And so I say, can I speak to the manager? And the manager's like, not my problem. And I was mad because I was like, okay, a little compassion, a little empathy. There's nothing on your website that says that I need a reservation or to like, there's literally nothing. So as I'm going through the conversation with him, he's like, not my problem. And I said, but it's how would someone know if it's not on your website? And he said, and it's through a national park. So I said, I looked on that national park website. There's no information. He said, well, did you look on ours? And I said, well, how would I know that you exist? Because you're not located on the national park website where the lava caves are. So I've never even heard of you until I walked in. I thought I was buying a ticket into the national park and then into the lava caves. I'm like, you are nowhere to be found on that website. So I was mad, not just because we couldn't do the lava caves, but more importantly, I was mad because of how that manager treated me. And I even went so far to, when we got in the car, look at the website again, go through all the pages, couldn't find it. And I had a 4 hour drive back.
Yes.
And I'm just ranting. And I'm like, that guy was so rude. He was so disrespectful. He wouldn't even let us wait to see if somebody didn't show up. And my son goes, you have 5 minutes. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He goes, you have 5 minutes. Here's how this is going to work. And so each minute stood for something. The last minute was to let it go. And I just thought that was so brilliant because it was his way of letting me process it to get it out, but ultimately let it go because he did not want to hear about this for the next 4 hours because that's the tirade I was going on, right? But we get so caught up in our heads. We analyze, we overanalyze. I'm sitting there going, okay, what could I have done different? What should I have said? What, like all these different things. And we don't have bad days. We have bad moments that turn into bad days. And that was a bad moment that was about to turn into a whole bad day until my son said that. So I think it's also asking the question that you said, like, who said that? It hijacks our thought patterns and gets us to stop thinking down that path, creating that false narrative and that story that isn't true immediately without us having to waste moments and hours in the whole day going, I had such a bad day. No, you had a bad moment that you didn't just keep thinking about. You told your friend about, you told your spouse or your kids about, you posted it on Facebook, you told another friend. So then it turned into this whole scenario. Then you find yourself talking about it 2 days later.
Once we start calling people to tell the story even further, we know we're in deep. One thing that I kind of always keep in mind, I have asked people the question, who told you that? I have asked myself that. So often, it's like you say, it interrupts it and there's a thought, and then there's often laughter, like, actually, nobody told me that. I made that up. I made that up. No one said that. I made that up, and I didn't even realize I did it because it happened so quickly. And so developing that pattern of interrupting our thoughts is such a great tool, and it's easy to use. We can access it at any moment.
I'm going to use that. And what's funny is just even when you said, I made that up, no one told me that. I made that up. I think it's almost like this sense of relief when you would say, I made that up. Oh my gosh, like well, as soon as you said that, it brought me back to being a little kid when your parents would ask, like, is that the true story? Or is that really what happened? No, I made that up. Like almost like, oh, like, my gosh, I'm making that up. But this sense of, okay, Jessica, no one said that. No one believed that. No one, you made that up.
Yeah, no one's upset with you because it's freeing. No one's upset with me. I don't have to carry that weight. And it also kind of just brings us back to reality because our brain really wants to keep us safe, not happy. If we think something has happened, our brain is trying to figure out what happened. How do we prevent this from happening again? Which is why we replay, which is why you went back and checked the website. because forbid I ever end up in this situation again. This will not happen again. So let me figure this out.
Yep.
And if we're not mindful, it can, again, like you said, end up leading to having a bad day when it was really just a moment.
And not to even add in all the stress and the pressure that going
Mhm.
down that rabbit hole does for our mental
Yes.
state, but it just literally puts so much stress and pressure and anxiety in us by playing that negative scenario over and over, and it's unnecessary.
Yes, and it's exhausting. And most of us are already exhausted. So we don't need to add layers of tiredness and exhaustion because our brain is a muscle and it gets tired. So running through those things has a major impact. It is exhausting. It creates tension where tension did not need to exist. It creates rifts where a rift did not need to exist. And then at the end of it, we then feel not great. We feel maybe not great about ourselves or about someone else.
So when you find that people are doing that, is there a way that they can prevent it moving forward, like all that thought pattern?
People who are able to engage in an active process of slowing themselves down mentally can, but that's a lot of work. We're humans. We're going to respond and we're going to react to things. And so there are things that we can do to just kind of like in general slow some of our processes down. And then on the other side, some people have a more active mind. And so we may have to just work with what we have, which means if I can't necessarily prevent it because I may not know the exact type of things that are gonna set me off, then how do I develop enough self-awareness to know when it's happening? And if I can recognize when it's happening, then I can do something about it.
Okay, so how can we maybe start to slow it down? You mentioned that.
Slowing it down is it's kind of like a cyclical process. The more I am aware of the rate and the pace of my thoughts and even my interactions. So one way we can think about it is consider how often you catch yourself rushing. I mean, I've had moments where I'm just rushing. There is nothing going on. There is nothing on the calendar. I'm literally just moving from place to place to place and catching myself doing that and just saying there's nothing urgent, we can slow down, or we get a meal, we get something, and we just find ourselves moving faster than necessary. If we catch ourselves doing those things, those are signs that we may need to do more intentional slowing down. So I'm going to grab my cup of tea and then I'm going to go sit down and then I'm going to drink. Sounds very simple, but if you're in a habit of rushing, it will be so hard to actually sit. So again, small steps.
Oh my gosh, like I literally, when you were talking about that, I felt like this anxiety come over me. And I don't
Yes.
use that word very much, but I literally was like, what are you talking about, Siobhan? What do you mean? Slow down, because I am a fast pace person, even if there's nothing to be done. Like, even if we have nowhere to go, I'm like eating food, like someone's about to take my plate away from me. And my son will get his food before I am, and I'm still cleaning stuff up. I'll get my food after it. I'll be done before. And I'm like, what's taking you so long? Like, let's go.
Right.
And
Mhm.
and not on a daily basis. I don't sit there and go, what's taking you so long? But I will
Mhm.
be done 100% of the time before he is, and I will just sit there and wait and we'll chat,
Mhm.
whatever. But just when you said, go get a cup of tea and sit down, I love me some hot tea and I can go do that and sit down as I'm working. Just to sit there with a cup of tea and doing nothing, I'm like, what do you mean? I just, uh,
Mhm.
that, that, I've got to be doing something. But just even when you said slow down, that's I kind of was asking that for myself because I'm like, well, how does one slow their brain down?
Because you
Yeah,
slow your body down and then your brain will follow. So I like the example of hot tea because what's going to happen if you drink it fast?
I'll burn myself.
So it gives you a built-in way to have to slow down, right?
Oh, that's
So I
good.
I love hot tea because that is homework I will assign folks. Okay, sit down, drink a glass of tea. Well, what am I supposed to do? Sit down and drink the tea. If you can read, you can do whatever you want, but your body will actually have to slow down because if not, there's a consequence. Because if your brain and your body gets accustomed to operating at one rate, we have to slowly introduce that this other way of moving is also safe. We have to produce and introduce new experiences because
Mhm.
it's unfamiliar. And it's not
Yeah.
surprising that you had that response. Like, what do you mean, slow down? Like, why would
It's
I do
like,
that? But that's how we often respond when something is new. So, finding simple ways to get our body to slow down, to relax, and to learn a new way of existing. Doesn't mean we won't ever speed up, but we can take moments to slow down.
I think that's a great skill that you can learn in moments of literally what you were just talking about. If something happens, you can learn that skill in situations like that of stopping,
Mhm.
pausing, slow down instead of reacting to someone as well.
And I've caught myself like one time I was trying to invite a friend to an event, and before I even touched my phone, I said they're probably too busy.
Mm.
And then I was like, wait, did I ask her? Well, actually, I did it. So if I did not talk to her, I do not know her schedule. And then I sent the text message, and within 3 minutes, they were like, I will be there. And then I was like, wow. Imagine if I just would have believed myself the first time.
We miss so many opportunities by filling in the blanks that no one tells
Yes.
us with our
Hmm.
own brains. I mean, she would have missed the opportunity to come to
Exactly.
that event had you not
Mhm.
stopped and slowed your brain down. So we need to stop and slow our brain down and be open to what's coming next because lots of stuff will come if we stop and slow our brain down and stop believing everything that we think. I love
Yes.
it. Thank you so much for being here, Siobhan. Lots of
Thank
great
you for
stuff. And
having me.
I'm actually going to try the who told you that? I'm going to
Yes.
try slowing my brain down, drinking a cup of hot tea and
Hmm.
not doing anything. And I'm going to report back and tell you how I feel.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
I can do it. I can do it. And again, it's just a skill. And I think once we start doing it and practicing that skill, we'll get better and better at it. And I'm sure, Siobhan, my son will thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure having you.
Hey, I'm Blaze, and the CS experience was my idea. I created it to help my mom, Jessica Rector. When she was traveling and keynote speaking a lot and on the verge of burnout, I wanted her to say yes to herself, to joy, and to what's possible. What started out with me helping her find a new ice cream around town had turned into a movement. So together we wrote this book, The Say Yes Experience, with 52 powerful tips to help you prevent burnout, strengthen your mental health, and live intentionally. Step outside your comfort zone. One tip, one small shift, one big impact. Ready to say yes to a better you? Grab the Say Yes experience at justcorrector.com/store.
Burnout isn't just exhaustion, it's a warning sign that something needs to change. 90% of the workforce has been in burnout in the last year alone, according to Gallup, and it's not going away anytime soon. It's even impacting the home life, but it doesn't have to be that way. In my powerful book, Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout, 52 Keys to Prevent, Breakthrough, and Beat Burnout, I show you how to take back control, reignite your energy, and transform overwhelm into opportunity. Backed by research and real-life strategies, this isn't just another self-help book. It's your guide to lasting change, mental wellness, and saying yes to the life you deserve. Ready to break the burnout cycle? Grab Blaze Your Brain to Extinguish Burnout today at justcorrector.com/store. If you want to get a copy for your team or all your employees, reach out to me directly for rates at jessica@justcorrector.com. If this episode hit close to home, it's not a coincidence, friend. That's awareness waking up. You need to decide if you want to be the person you've always been or if this is your chance to rewrite it. And you get to decide today whether that old story keeps running your life or whether you write a new version. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's a crossroads, a moment to slow down, listen differently, and choose what comes next with intention instead of habit, instead of routine. If this conversation helped you pause, breathe, or see yourself with more clarity, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so these conversations can keep meeting you where you are. And don't keep it to yourself, friend. Share this episode with a friend, a colleague, a family member who's been carrying too much for too long. Maybe they're questioning quietly or feeling disconnected and they don't know how to say it out loud. This is your time to share it with them. One episode can shift a perspective. One share can change a conversation, and one honest decision can change the direction of your life. I have been there myself. Subscribe, share it, and start telling a different story, one that actually feels like yours. Until next time, my friend, I believe in you. Keep saying yes to live more.